exactly what was going on. I was in Pullman still, and I went up to some professors and students kind of conference at Coeur d'Alene, and it was winter time, and there was ice on the lake, and we were camped out in what appeared to be an old CCC camp. And anyway, we were supposedly doing, I don't know what, you know. Administrators get weird ideas at times. Send the professors and the students up to a blasted heath somewhere and let them confer. But while I was there, I got this other voice speaking. And he ended up going on for quite a while. And I wrote a book called The Old Beast, that is a collection of the Beast's poems. He's not always he's not the speaker always, but though he speaks in them. And anyway, he fit that time, 69, 70 or so, which was not a good time. And he fits this time, and I'm afraid most any time. Old Beast talk. The old beast sloshes when he walks. His boots are full, and so's his gut. Old loves are better blurred, he says, or best forgot. His eyes are plumb bob still. His mouth moves like a chain. Thumb and forefinger make a pea-sized gap. She left, he says, a hole this big right through my heart. Barkeep, make me one with ice. The old beast curls on the stool. His mouth is wet. Bourbon is philosophy at 8 a.m. I take my love affairs like books, he says. When I did reviews, I read nothing I could not praise, and praised some things I had not read. The barkeep nods. So let it be with women. I like to fool around a bit. Winter's the best for dalliance. Young wives with dull husbands watch the sky for signs, and I walk in. Discreet and nimble, I'm a sentimentalist for all my looks. The old beast snaps one eyelid down and back. Inconstancy, he says, keeps me alert. The sack of stones hung in his chest swings back and forth. Besides, the natural history of the void's my game. His eyes are still. One more with ice. The old beast gives advice. Carried a knife since I was 8. A boy's supposed to. Keep a pistol in my drawer at home and hate the government. That's what I teach, what I was taught. The old beast squats on the snow, pulling at a $1 muscatel. I don't like work and never have. It's foolishness, and so I don't. Don't ask me how. You wouldn't want to know. Barlow was a good knife once, but nothing beats a case that's whetted right and keen. See my car there? The old beast fingers at a 60 Chev. See that sign? The bumper screams, "Don't vote, buy a gun." I know what's coming because I've been there and I've got eyes. The universe disfigures space, and that's the truth. There is much of God in shoelace knots as in a prophet's words. It's all the same. The old beast cracks another seal. Wine's not like pistols. Any wine will do. As for pistols, buy the biggest you can pack and hide. And for God's sake, learn to shoot. He has quite a life that he talks about. And toward the end of it, you sort of get the idea that it's possible he is simply someone who has taken the left-handed path instead of the right-handed path, but ended up at the same place. And this is called the old beast heals a paralytic. I have been given power, the old beast says, to peer inside the minds of trees, deep in the earth, and my ears hear the tiny syllables with which stones speak. The old beast is sober as a babe. This comes through suffering and pain and absolute rejection of any prophet. He touches the woman gently on the head. I've never made a dime from this and never will. I'll take a drink and a sandwich, then I must go. Why don't you get up and fetch them here? The woman does. Her husband laughs, then cries, then shakes his head in a kind of dance. Okay. We are dog people back at home, and at the moment we've got 11 dogs. 6 Scotties, 3 pugs, and 2 skugs, which are Scotty pug mixes. And they're very cute, curious little dogs. But if you've had dogs, most likely you've seen them get anxious when a thunderstorm starts. And anyway, so this little poem is just called Dogs and Thunder. The dogs bark in fear at thunder and whine to come in. It is huge in their ears, and they do not know what it eats or kills. But it might be dogs. And here's another animal poem. Came to me the way you sort of got that one. Somebody, the mother of my eldest grandson, came to visit one day, and she said, I just got to tell you what happened this morning. So she told me this story. And all I did to make it into a poem was to turn it around and let Thomas the cat recites the manner of his death. So this is the cat speaking. I was old and feral. Unsightly patches of scabbed skin punctuated my coat. My guts were alive with worms. I was hungry, miserable, and dying. I sat on the back road, determined never to move again. And the angel of death drove up in a green Toyota pickup. Her name was Debbie, and she was a pediatric intensive care nurse on her way to work. She understood the needs of small hurt things. She got out of her truck, looked at me seriously, and said, "You poor damn thing," pulled her pistol from her purse and shot me most painlessly and blessedly dead, then drove away. I have been I'm worried about knocking it all over. I've been a fan of physics ever since I tried to begin college in 1950 and declare a major in astrophysics, and then couldn't quite get through analytic geometry. And so I decided I better go into another field, but I still love physics. And I've read Scientific American since 1959. I think I've had a subscription. And it's the articles on physics that perhaps excite me the most, though I love them all. And so this is a poem that gives a bow to physics and to reality. More physics, it's called. Let's get this straight. The woman I love is made up of no more than 3 generations of elementary particles. Right? The up and down quarks, which form protons and neutrons, the electron and the electron neutrino. Then charm and strange quarks, the muon and the muon neutrino. And last, new experiments guarantee it, top and bottom quarks and the tau and tau neutrino. I've got it all down. It looks just like her. Beautiful and mysterious, simple as God, and totally unfathomable. I always liked I'm going to go over here to, this is that book covers roughly 50 years of poetry from about the late 50s in there somewhere. I didn't really count, up to 2002. And the next book out came out in 2008, 7, Swamp Sultans and Tales. And by this time I had sort of adjusted to the idea of living in the midst of the Black Swamp of Ohio, which had been drained by early German settlers, but there are still wonderful pockets of swamp left, one of which is in my backyard. I don't mess with it, and it doesn't mess with me, except my head sometimes. And so I've ended up writing a lot of poems about that area and the swamp and the winters. And but I enjoyed this book. But this is not exactly on this subject. I wear these hearing aids now because during the Korean War on the USS Essex, they in those days did not offer any hearing protection whatsoever, and so between the jet noise on the flight deck and anti-aircraft guns, quad 40 Bofors, millimeter Bofors. When I was checked by the audiologist, she said, anyone who served on an aircraft carrier in those days is deaf. And so anyway, I got free hearing aids. But the poem is called Les Enfants Terribles, the terrible children, you know. Waiting in the Veterans Hospital for my appointment, I sit among men from the past 60 years of national violence. We nearly all wear blue jeans, do not frequent barbers, and don't appear to be bankers, politicians, or even corporate executives. We are far more colorful than they. Running shoes and engineer boots outnumber wingtips by 100 to 1. Our hats shout slogans. A few bear armfuls of bad tattoos and scars. There are many canes. We smile and nod and happily listen to the mumbling neighbor. We know the joke has been on us. And to continue in the military vein, my father-in-law went in on D-Day at Omaha Beach as a forward artillery observer. And so he basically crawled in front of all the troops to call in artillery strikes, and even at that time strikes from battleships and cruisers all. And he went through the Normandy campaign, the Bulge, the Hurtgen Forest, the Rhine campaign, went all the way and met the Russians at the Elbe after a detour through Buchenwald. He was one of those. Millennial Dawn. I wrote this January the 1st, 2001, for Walter. No day to be an infantryman or a refugee. Walter still cannot talk of the winter of 44 and 45 in the Hurtgen Forest and the Bulge, the ceaseless slaughter and the hideous cold. From D-Day, Omaha Beach, all the way to the Russians on the Elbe, a forward artillery observer who should have been killed each day, but was not still. Buchenwald to set the horror. We've had a century all right. My own surprisingly mild. A blast of Siberian wind over the bow of the Essex, 60 knots or so, like a razor to the face, about as bad as it got. The rest has been easy. Indolence, pleasure, books, everyone alive, about as long as expected. I know the doom coming, and watch it gather speed. With luck, I'll be dead before it hits, though my children and theirs will have to bear it. I hope they find a corner out of the wind. Both life and art teach you to forgive. So do. Avoid beguilement by mystery and texts. Be alert and armed with your choice to survive accumulated consequences. I sometimes write about poems about poetry, and sometimes I write simply poems that